Johnston is a prolific singer-songwriter producing from his home in Everett, Washington. Inspired by the sonic spirituality of Sigur Ros, the abstract adventurism of Bon Iver, and the pop sentimentality of Coldplay, Alex Johnston's music has been described as deeply introspective, uplifting, pensive, motivating, and self-inquiring, as you look into an aural kaleidoscope taking you to an ethereal plane, guiding you with a heartbreakingly and beautifully haunting voice as you begin a pilgrimage into the unknown, a journey that will leave you longing for more. Alex began self-producing his work at home in 2016 with 2 conceptual EPs entitled Bright and Gray. Since then, Alex has not relented his creativity and industriously produced 8 albums, 4 ambient collections, a Christmas album, a handful of singles, even quiet versions of his own songs. In 2022, he produced his music video for Dizzy, a glitchy and cathartic free-spirited dance on a parking garage, and in 2023 produced a 37-minute visual album film for Daylight Fool Dream, telling one story over 10 songs about 2 versions of one person being guided to each other and to home with the help of their imagination. Overall, for a small independent artist working out of his bedroom, Alex Johnston has let his ambition roam wild, bringing him into territory he and others have not been, and has created a sonically expansive, self-referential universe of spirit and song. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell the audience a bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I am 32 years old. I've lived in Washington for about half my life, and I have a bachelor's in music, and I love coffee, hanging around Everett. And also for my day job, I work a 9 to 5 with a Seattle Children's Hospital, working with adults as a teacher, working with adults with autism and other developmental disabilities. So I get to kind of facilitate fun and learning and social connection. I teach classes like outer space, dinosaurs, Pokemon, creative writing, songwriting, some art classes, and I get to take them bowling and play video games. So
That sounds like a great 9 to 5.
it can be an experience sometimes, but it's
Yeah.
great. I'm grateful for it. It's
Yeah,
fun.
that's really awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
So you've self-produced all of your work since 2016. How's your approach to production evolved?
Wow, yeah. So, in anticipation for my album Hourglass, I've actually been going through and re-listening to my music and kind of seeing, what's been similar and what's been so very different. My earlier work was kind of a lot of like religious deconstruction that I had to kind of process as I was kind of learning and growing as a person. Um, so my music was very like lyrically like just like stuck in my head, kind of unraveling a lot of things that you know caused me a lot of mental anguish and strife for anyone who's grown up in hyper controlling religious environments. Um, and so was very kind of like timid also too. I didn't want to just like write a folk album, so I kind of made a lot of sounds kind of swirled together. um, but as I have released more music each and every time, I've kind of honed a lot of that ambition with sound. Not having a band has always kind of been a little bit of a challenge, but also a very empowering thing that I can make whatever kind of music I want to make, which has been really, really special as I've kind of learned to, at first write songs on an instrument. And then it's kind of turned into this thing where like the song is actually an instrument I'm learning how to play and produce. Um, and then now I feel like I'm at the point where I'm an instrument I'm learning how to play. And learning kind of my own like idiosyncrasies and the things that make my sound me, which involves kind of a lot of kind of sonic manipulation with sounds, with my voice even, and then uh, kind of just, I don't know, being free and learning to turn that initial mind off I was very overthinky, and over time I released a couple albums that were very actually improvisational and recorded very fast. Um, and that has kind of loosened me up, and I feel like I've become a bit more free. If people have seen me live, they've seen how I've kind of also transformed, and now I just really, anytime I play live, I love being really loud and letting my voice like out. So yeah.
Yeah, I tend to be a perfectionist, and so something that I've been working on with myself, especially even things like with these interviews and stuff, is being like, okay, you just need to make it. And once you start making it, then you can get better. But you can never just like start out incredible if you never start trying in the first place.
Absolutely, yeah. One of my teachers, mentors, and now friends, um, she helped me kind of produce and mix the first two albums that I did. And I remember when I was releasing my first EPs, I thought, I don't know if these are actually any good now that I'm done with them. I don't know if I feel proud of them. And she was like, just release it and then make something else. There's no need to, uh, worry about, what you've made, because you can always make something else. And that kind of like was simultaneously like a blessing and a curse, because now I'm like, I need to make as many things as I can. And that's just been the attitude that I've gone into music with, is just like assuming you live a long time, life is long and there's so much art you can make. So kind of for a lot of my stuff, like because it is self-produced, I listen back, I'm like, ooh, was that a good mixing choice? Or that doesn't sound as nice as it could. And maybe that's been to my detriment, but it's really actually kind of empowered me to create so much, and have fun with it and kind of let go. So yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice outlook. And for anyone unaware, you have been going through these past recordings on your Instagram and really re-examining them and looking at them. Is there any of them so far that have really stuck out to you as you've been doing that?
Yeah, so today I was just posting about my two acoustic albums, Death on the Ground and Little Impulses. Little Impulses was me pressing the record button and just being like, I am going to try and write and sing and record something coherent and that makes sense, rather than like thinking about it, right, and thinking, is this going to be cool or sexy or like, thought provoking. I'm like, no, I'm just going to sing from my heart. And those two albums, I think are just like really special to me. Death on the Ground, I wrote after a 10-day silent retreat, just kind of thinking about like impermanence and death and what it would be like to die, be a ghost, and then move on. Utilizing like kind of tropes from horror movies, like the lights going out and doors closing and seeing a ghost and being trapped and what's around the corner. Those two albums, I just think they're really cool. It's just all acoustic, and I made them really fast, and I'm like, damn, that's really cool. Like, I did that. And it's like everything else I've done, especially this new album, is just like really bombastic and big. And I love making music like that, but I also just like my favorite songs on albums are always like the quiet ones. So, yeah.
Beauty in the contrast.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Your new album, Hourglasser, just came out. Can you tell the audience a little bit more about the album?
Yeah, so this album kind of like came together with this lesson I've been learning about being yourself. And there's this phrase uh, that comes to mind that was really powerful to me, that just kind of popped in my head. And it was just, you can be yourself. Um, and feeling like there's not enough time to be myself sometimes, where I'm moving from one thing to the next and I feel scarce on time, feeling like I have a lot of emotions and thoughts and I can't get them out. I want to have a day off, please. um, I want to have a happy day after a lot of sad days, but today is going to be another sad day, and I don't feel like I have time to, be myself. And so a lot of these songs um, are about feeling so many emotions, and time is a really big element in this album. Kind of like described it like a fever dream of time traveling, and it's not necessarily sci-fi per se, but it's really feeling the ability to kind of like stop time and assess yourself, um, to go back and like examine a feeling and to imagine forward and kind of consider um, your own future in that moment, and that your future is like your kind of present thing. It's just as I'm talking, it's like, oh, time's all kind of mismatching and all that. But um that was kind of like a big inspiration for a lot of these songs. I wrote like 4 or 5 of them pretty early on, and they're all just these big overstimulating songs. And then I was like, I like these songs, and they feel like they connect, but I also don't necessarily know. I'm like, that's just, I can't have 5 songs that are just huge. So then I ended up in one night actually recording about like 4 from lyrics that I had written, and they're all really mellow songs, kind of in between and kind of conversing. So in my mind also too, it feels like that's those like songs with different palettes are kind of like me in different places or states of mind or time, kind of conversing. Yeah, so
That's really cool. You just described Hourglasser as a fever dream of time traveling. How did you go about creating that experience sonically?
yeah. So I think there's probably a lot of different ways to do that. And kind of describing it like that is like, oh, did I do that intentionally or not? But um, I love playing with randomness. That's a really um, big part of my like production process, is kind of playing something and then kind of saying, okay, that was it. Just gonna use take one on that, and that doesn't always happen. But using things that are kind of like out of time, uh, just like a random arpeggiator going beep boop 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 beep boop boop boop, and just kind of letting it fit in the space. So there's things like that. There's a song called "I Know There Is No Time," and that was recorded in like a live take. So what you hear is a live take on that recording, and it's just the one phrase repeated in a lot of different ways and lining up with the chords in different ways and kind of being stretched out. Um, so that one is a song that's kind of like feels special and communicates that um, playfulness with time, to be able to hang out on a line for that long and let it evolve and unfurl in kind of different ways. Um, there's a song called Surprise Nostalgia, which has a lot of that kind of random sound, but also utilizes samples from people that I asked on Instagram saying, hey, send me something that you miss, because the song is about missing your life before it even happens to you. So I had like a lot of people saying, I miss my life, I miss it all, sharing memories or things that hold a significance to them. And I kind of scattered it throughout the song, and that was really cool to do. And there's another moment on the album called "Been Down," and I took the master audio file and then I slowed it down. I like stretched it out at one point to kind of feel this sense like, okay, the beat's like this, and now it's slowing down, and then it's kind of speeding up actually. There's moments like that. In one of the songs, Indecision, there's kind of this one phrase that kind of also plays around and just repeats. It's this phrase that says, I will tell you how it goes. And the entire second half of it is just kind of this repetition that feels kind of random and playful. Lastly, with to create kind of this sense of like retrospect and kind of maybe being outside of time. The middle track on the album and the final track on the album are kind of these like acoustic songs that I recorded like distantly from the mic and then kind of put a little old-timey vinyl effect on to kind of have this like it just sounds old, and it sounds like it's aged, and it doesn't really like kind of fit with the rest of the songs, but it is kind of looking at everything from a extra universal kind of like perspective. So yeah.
You mentioned surprise nostalgia. That was actually one of the songs that really stood out to me on my first time listening to it.
Oh,
I really, really like that one.
thank you.
Along those kinds of lines, do you have a favorite song off the album?
I know there is no time really kind of sticks out to me, because it is something I am constantly saying a lot to myself. And there is this duality in that, which is going back to that phrase, you can be yourself. And I really was like processing in therapy a lot. I'm like, I don't feel like I have enough time to be myself. And then also realizing I don't need time to be myself. I can just be myself, which seems kind of like duh. But there is this kind of rage in that song of screaming, I know there is no time, and then also realizing that time isn't really real, you know? So I know there is no time. And then I know there's no time. And that's good, and that's okay. And so that one sticks out as a big favorite, as well as uh I would say the song You Can, which is the second to last one on the album. Uh, that song actually used an old song of mine that I was gonna among the first that I recorded for Daylight Fool Dream, my last album. And it just has this phrase that I also come back to a lot, which is you can make your world whatever. But then it's also followed up by this phrase of it's not easy. And those are like two very important like mantras I feel like I'm often repeating to myself. But yeah.
It's always nice the things that like people take from therapy. The one that really stuck out for me, my last appointment, was it's okay to be a mess.
Yes.
That one really resonated with me because I never want to let myself be a mess, along those same lines of like, just there's no time to be yourself kind of thing. It's, oh, you feel like you need to be this like perfect on kind of person.
Absolutely. I know. I resonate with that a lot. Like I have a lot of fear about being confused and not
Yeah.
knowing what to do. And I was like talking with my partner and like we were having this like conversation. I was just like, I'm just afraid to say I don't know. And it's like, oh, there's kind of a release like when you do like be like, I am a mess right now.
Yeah.
There's freedom in that. And like that's kind of a lot of what this album's about is kind of like kind of falling into yourself and just like feeling all these things at once. Like I remember sending the album to my friend Lacey, who's my mentor, who like told me like, hey, like just keep making stuff. And she was like, it's really busy. And she's like, I don't know what to pay attention to. And I was like, I want to take this feedback because I want to become a better like musician and producer and but then I was like, that's the point actually. Like I want this album to feel like really overstimulating, and kind of like, whoa, what's going on? Because being yourself is messy and it can feel like there's a lot going on. So if people are like, oh, that was a lot, I'm like, good job.
Yeah. It's another nice way to like sonically have time examined in terms of the like if the album is overwhelming, then you have to take time to sit and really process it more than like if it's just easy to get through on like the very first listen in a way.
Yeah, and that's what I like hope for with like a lot of my music. Um, and I look at the Spotify streams and I'm like, I don't know how many people are binging my music. But like truly like I've been making a lot of things and like certain songs like also like reference each other and there's like kind of like a little multiverse or like universe of like my music and like I hope that like people like one day like would be able to like go through something and be like, oh, I actually see some connections or like I can appreciate like those kind of little things in there. Yeah.
That's really neat to kind
Yeah.
of have those tiebacks and Easter eggs almost.
Yeah, and also too like for any like creators out there and stuff, I feel like there's it's fun to like reuse your own work. I think that's like it's such a good like springboard of like ideas and like connecting yourself. Like um I to be able to um oh what am I trying to say? To be able to have that freedom and playfulness, I think is really it one idea contains a lot of ideas. I think I'll just say that. Yeah.
It's also really good for like fans and listeners in terms of like creating a very cohesive brand for yourself so people really know what to expect when they come to hear your music, you know? You don't it's always kind of like sometimes I'll see an artist who puts out an album that's like so very disconnected from everything else that they've done, not just like in terms of the way it sounds, but like in terms of like lyrical content and stuff. And on the one hand, you're like, oh, well, the artist is pushing themselves and that's a good thing. And but you're also like, but if it no longer sounds like if I can no longer hear and see the connections to who this artist had been before, and what you resonated with was who they'd been before, it kind of becomes hard to go into the future with them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, no, I think there's having that kind of continuity is fun. I love going through like someone's discography and then being like, whoa. And then you hear like you're like, oh my gosh, I really love their like newest album, blah blah blah. And then you like go back and you listen to their first album and you're like, wait a second, it was in there. It was like a little like seeds and like pieces of it. And
Yeah.
it's really cool. And I feel like as I've been going back through like my discography and listening to things, I'm like, oh yeah, that is not me at all anymore. But like, I see me in there.
Yeah. This
And
is where that seed of something started that is now grown into something else on this album.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my partner, she was like, have you ever thought of like changing like your like moniker or your name?" And I was like, "That would be cool, because then I'd have like a interesting sounding name that like it would be like, oh, I'm gonna go see Bloodbath, or I don't know, and but it's just like, oh, I just see an Alex Johnston. Who's that guy? I'm like, I don't know. But then at the same time, like when I started it, I thought like this is just gonna be my musical journey. I love music. That's like what I wanted to do like my whole life, whatever happens. And it's me. So yeah.
Yeah. What were some of the challenges you faced while creating the album? Did any particular song or moment during production stand out as a turning point?
I think kind of I sat on these songs like on probably about four of them, four or five of them, I forget. Like Ordinary, Surprise Nostalgia, Been Down, Something I Think About, and Maybe You Can, I think were like five songs that I had that were like, oh, and Indecision. Um, those songs like I had had for a long time, but it all just kind of felt like flat. So like wanting to release something and I was like I don't want to do an EP. I want to do a full album, but um like not having a narrative kind of flow and journey, that's always like been so important to me with like every album I've done. I'm like it's got to have a good flow to it. And it has to feel like a journey. Like those are like very like firm rules for me. If I'm making an album, like it has to flow and feel really good. um and not having that was like I was like, well, geez, um I I I'm so close to having an album, but so far at the same time. So then I just like one night I just like sat down and I was just like, I'm making interludes. And then I just busted them out, and I was like, oh, I feel better now. But honestly, though, I mean, something that's I think just a general challenge for me is finding time. As much as I'm like, oh, transcend time, la di da di da, I'm like, ah, always kind of feeling like I just needed that. I remember taking a couple days off and was like, I'm gonna like work on mixing tweaks because it was just not at a place I wanted, and I just needed like I think 3-ish days to get things to a place where I felt good. And I just needed time to dive in, and working like 9 to 5, and like having a busy life and everything outside. It's hard. And um, I just kind of wanted to come home and just like I just want to watch Dragon Ball Z. I want to go home and like play a video game or watch a horror movie or go on a walk, please. Or just not do anything. Or I want to paint, or I want to do so much with my life. I don't want to make this album, but I do. And really, the struggles I think have just been like the scope of it was really big. Is I think the biggest sounding album I feel like I've made, um, and just finding time to do that. And so like my goal for music I'm doing next, I want to expedite my process quite a bit more because this one was like kind of pushed me a little bit to my limit.
It's interesting in terms of like the creation of an album. Like you need to have like a beautiful full picture, but then you're also like working on it in these like little chunks. And like with like a book, for example, the chapters don't really need to ever just stand alone, because nobody's ever just going to like read chapter 13 out of a book at random, but like any one of your songs could be heard completely and totally by itself.
Yeah.
And so it's like that getting it to work fully on its own, but also making it make sense with this bigger picture, this bigger story that you're trying to tell.
Yeah. Yeah. Having that flow, I think, is if an album doesn't have that flow for me, it still can be a good album. But I think like when you have this like, oh, whoa, that song's really good, that song's really good. But then when you hear it in context, it's like, oh, that feels nice. Like when I've been playing live, I've been enjoying like playing the first like indefinite and ordinary like happen, and I love being able to like deliver that live, deliver that same experience live. um and going from like I don't know, yeah, like surprise. I've done like surprise nostalgia going into I know there is no time, and like giving people that kind of like experience is really special, I think, to share that and be like, welcome to my world, this is what it's like.
So, kind of along those lines, what do you hope listeners take away from Hourglasser, especially when it comes to its exploration of time and the present moment?
Yeah, I played a show recently at the Lucky Diamond Everett, and it was a really fun show because the other bands were all punk bands, and I'm just me. And it was, I think, like one of the most like attentive crowds I've played to, and it was actually like really cool because um people came up to me afterwards and they were like, that was really beautiful, or like, you made me cry, or like they're like, I had goosebumps, or you made me like feel things that I'm gonna be thinking about when I leave. And I was like, this is like, I'm getting goosebumps now actually. Just like thinking about that, like realizing like, oh geez, like this is exactly like what I wanted. I want people to kind of like be able to lose themselves in the soundscape of it. Like if someone's able to listen to the whole thing with headphones, I would be like, wow. If one person did that, I'd be like, yay. And then if they liked it, of course. But I think like if people were able to like, really feel something deep and meaningful to them, whatever it is, a dream that they have, a memory, a relationship, anything. I hope people are able to um, kind of feel a sense of reflection, but also maybe like empowerment. The last song, like You Can, is, or the second to last song, You Can, is just like saying you can punch your like fists into a couch and like scream. You can laugh after you cry. Like you can do all these things, and you can really just feel your feels, right? And I think yeah, the whole idea of like you can be yourself. I think if someone is able to like listen to the lyrics and like tune in, realizing that whatever life you're going through, it's like that's you, and that's only something you can do and live and be and feel through. So yeah, hope people have emotions, and I hope people get lost in it. So
That's some beautiful feedback on that show.
yeah, oh yeah, no, it like has been really special playing live, and I feel like I haven't had like a lot of opportunities to play to like um big crowds. I feel like I can look around in the scene and be like, oh, that show looked like really big attended, and some of mine have been like really small, but it's like I love that actually. Like it feels really special, and like being able to connect with people. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I'm not playing for like maybe big crowds or anything, but like that I can connect with someone and that someone can connect with me. That's like truly like all I want, for music. Because that's the music I love. Like it's just something that like hits and connects with me, and that's really meaningful. So to be able to share that experience is really something I'm grateful for deeply.
Someone who has never been on the performing side of things, only ever the listening side of things,
Mm.
I honestly really prefer the small concerts. It's
Yeah.
so much more meaningful. I'm not saying that there isn't like a joy for people who go to these big arena shows and there's that emotion and energy from like the audience, but you're reading it from the audience more so than the artists themselves versus like when you're at a small show, that emotion and energy and what you take away from it is so much more dependent on your connection to the artist.
Yeah, absolutely. I love those shows. So
Yeah. So we've kind of touched on this again also already, but how do you view Hourglasser as fitting into the broader landscape of your previous work? Do you see it as a continuation, a departure, or perhaps a culmination of your creative journey so far?
yeah. Um I I feel like it's kind of it feels like an extension from my last album, because my last album was kind of about like being able to jump back and forth between like your imagined life and your present life. Um and this kind of takes that idea a little bit and plays with it with all the time stuff we talked about. Um as I've been going through like my old work, it does feel a bit like a culmination. It feels like everything has kind of been going towards like make these big sounds and make these sensitive songs. And as I've lyrically been like paying attention to my music, these songs kind of feel like they're kind of landing in that um, place where my earlier albums were like, I want to break out of this box that I was born into, and I want to just be myself. And this album feels like I made it, that I did kind of break out of the box. And um, yeah, yeah. I feel like it has this kind of culminating kind of feel, and I honestly feel like what I do next may be a bit different, at least right now. So hard to say. I've played around with some ideas, but I think, yeah, I think I'll do something different next time, and this does feel kind of culminating.
That's a really beautiful narrative that it kind of has.
Thank you. Yeah, like I hope anyone who is like familiar like with like my journey, or if someone like were to listen from like front to back of my discography, I think that they would see that. And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's really cool. So, speaking of your previous work, I was really interested in your visual album film, Daylight Fool Dream. Can you tell the audience a bit more about that project and what led you to create a visual album film?
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, I'm glad you asked about this because I'm honestly like really proud of this, and was so fun to make, and also kind of a thing where when I showed it, there's a lot of emotional connection to it because it's kind of a spirit abstract kind of concept that I'll talk about. But people were like, "Whoa!" Like people like laughed, they cried, they thought things, and someone was like, said that was abstract enough for me to watch it and insert myself into it and know like in myself what mattered, in the art. And I was like, woo, that is exactly what I wanted to do. And as an artist, that's just like the biggest like excitement because it's like that's why we make things, to connect, to feel, to express. So um that album started with this idea of there's a song on it called Made You Look, and it's about sitting at a bar looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing that there's a person sitting next to you, um, watching you do that. All the while, like, there's someone outside driving past the bar looking in, um, and there's someone who used to be in that bar and isn't in that bar anymore. And this kind of microcosm of all these people's relationship to this one place. And they're all strangers and they're all different people, different experiences and perspectives in the bar. But realizing that that is kind of something that's inside of us and in our own kind of world, like the places you've yet to be, the places you've been, the places you are now, and the different parts of you that might be where you're presently at. So started kind of writing songs with that kind of like in mind, jumping between the lives you haven't lived and kind of being in the life you have now and wanting to be maybe somewhere else, and feeling dissatisfied. And I don't know what the word is for that feeling, other than just explaining that entire thing. But I was like, it'd be cool to put that into a film, and into a music video. I had made Dizzy as one music video, and I was like, oh, that's cool. It'd be fun to make some more music videos. And then I was like, well, I could make one. And then I was like, well, I like the story idea, so I should just make a music video for every song and tell the story. Um, and I was like, that's a big idea. And I told like some friends, and they're like, that's really cool. You should do that. If you don't do it, no one else is going to do it. So make the thing that you can make. And I'm like, I never made a film before, but I guess I will now. So, and I like told my partner, Michaela, and I was like, okay, hear me out. What does this sound like? She's like, I'll help you film it. Yep. I was like, cool, great, let's do it. Let's make a movie. Um, so like started kind of like this whole process kind of happened kind of fast. I started recording the songs like February, Marchish, and was done by June. And then during like you know May, June was kind of like really like brainstorming these ideas and like basically like writing a script for like the music videos and like ideas. And then yeah, then we filmed from July to August and finished at the beginning of September filming. And we were just like running around town, doing so much filming. And it really just captures these two different versions of myself, one in all black, one in all white. They're in two different locations, one of which is the location of the Dizzy music video. And like all those outfits in that video are like inside of that person's reality. So it's these two realities, and they're kind of like they wake up and they're kind of just like frustrated and they're in a mood. But then there's this version of myself wearing a red shawl without glasses, and that's like the imagination kind of like observing this person kind of having a mental breakdown. Um, and then in the third act, they kind of switch spots. So one person's at a beach, one person's on the parking garage, and then they swap. And they during the whole first act, they're kind of interacting with the space, frustrated. They get stuck inside of a enclosure and they can't break out. But then in the third act, they're able to look back at this life and be like, I've been here before and I can do this and I can navigate this well. And then they find freedom and then they come home to themselves. And when they come home, they sit on the couch and they're like kind of aware that there's another person there somehow. Even though it's not two of me on the couch, it's like one of me sitting there, cuts, and then there's another one of me sitting there. But then they look out the window, and for the very first time, they see their imagination walk into the yard. And so it's like they see themselves and they see their imagination, their future, their whatever. It's very like kind of whatever you want, but they make eye contact, and that's known. And then they walk away, and then they close their eyes, and then it's done. But it's this whole kind of like, I don't even know what it necessarily means, but it's just kind of this image. And it all began with that image of looking out the window and seeing yourself. And you see yourself kind of walk away and you're like, where am I going? where is that guy? And so I just wanted to capture that because I struggle a lot like with, envy and like kind of wishing like I want to be somewhere else. I don't know if I like my life right now. And I wanted to write something that gave me encouragement to be like, hey man, like if you think it, you can do it. And I always thought it'd be cool to make a film like Pink Floyd's The Wall, and I was like, well, I'll just do that. And so I think it's just kind of this when I would show the film live for people, I would tell them, if there's something, as you watch this, think about something you're unhappy about. Think about a place you want to go or a goal or something inside you that feels wanting, and let the film speak to that. And I think it did.
Yeah, I think so too. I really liked all of the ideas behind the film a lot. I thought it was really interesting and something that I hadn't seen much of before. Another thing that I really liked about it as well was just like you said, you did it. And that I see a lot of like emerging small to mid-size artists who have these songs that feel so narratively driven, and then I'll talk to them and be like, oh, are you going to make any sort of music video for it, because it feels like a song that so deserves and makes sense for a music video. And then they're always like, no, like, it's too expensive. And I'm certainly not going to downplay the expense of those kinds of things. Video projects, if you're hiring peoples and teams and all that kind of stuff, is expensive. But one of the things that I really liked about yours was that like you did it. You made it happen. And in fact, my next question is going to like ask a bit more about the production, but like, you mentioned you filmed, or not in, you didn't mention it here, but you mentioned it on your website that you filmed it with an iPhone and a free version of DaVinci Resolve. And I think that's like really admirable. And I think it's something that like more artists should look to, is just do it, just take the tools you've got and just do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean it was challenging. I was talking to my partner yesterday. I was like what was hard about it? And she was like, my arms hurt. Like we didn't I just got a gimbal like recently. So it could be like, oh, a stabilizer, that would be nice. But she didn't even have that. Like, she's just following me around like this. She was like, the opening scene takes place at a beach, and she was in the water, like squatting down for a bit while to get the right angle. She was running around because there's a lot of running in it for some reason. But she's like chasing me as I'm just like hauling like across a beach, jumping over things. Um, and so like it was not like easy, but it's like funny because like I sometimes like see like someone like, oh, we made a music video or something, and it's like this is the whole crew that is involved, and I was like, I could not afford that. But I'm really grateful, like that Michaela was with me because like she also like understood like she understood me and she understood like the vision, and she also like emotionally like connected with the vision too. um and that's something I'm like I have zero words of like to express how grateful I am that like we were able to do that, and that she was there along the journey for me, walking around, stepping on me. There's one scene where it's like the two different versions of myself, and she's like spinning around, and she was just like walking over me. And I'm like, if there was gear, it would have been so easy, but there was no gear. She was the gear. So like the whole thing was like impossible to do without her. And then like there's free video editing software out there that's super cool, so it's just like being able to just like put it all together, cut it, put all the videos together, voila, you got a film. um but yeah, it was really fun to do. I got to yeah, I'd only done the Dizzy music video, which was dancing on a roof for 40 minutes in several different outfits, and then manically like editing it together in like 48 hours and being like, oh cool, I made a music video. That's fun. Let's do that again. And then Juliet actually uh she asked me to do her Nice Try music video, and then so I got to do that, and I was like, this is fun, I want to make more videos. And then so like was like, okay, let's make 10 of them. But yeah, I think like I just it's not in a bad way, but I feel like it's sad to me when I see like artists being like, I spent 3 years or on this EP, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like to hear that, like and to sometimes just like be like, you can make that, like make your art is important, like we want more of it, like so like screw it, make that music video on an iPhone. It's so cool, you can like it, the quality's good enough, and sometimes folks can't tell the difference, and that's actually really cool. There's a movie called Monkey Man, um and it was filmed during COVID, and um uh there were so many things that went wrong during it, which is funny too because it's like a revenge movie about this guy just getting his butt kicked the whole time and also kicking butt. So it's like he was fighting in the movie, but then they also fought to make this movie happen. There was like cameras didn't show up, so he was like, here, film on my iPhone. So there's parts of that movie that are filmed on an iPhone, that are filmed on a GoPro. It's like, we live in such an empowering time. Make things. Like, I don't know. I get excited about those types of conversations. I'm like, do it.
And it's okay if it's a mess.
Absolutely.
You got to start somewhere and work to it.
And also, I feel like that adds character too.
Yeah.
And that's just my kind of personality too. Some people do like a little bit more pristine things. And that's totally great too. Like no shame or diss on any of those things. That's just, but like for myself, I'm like, I think it's kind of fun to be able to just make something. Yeah.
And yeah, like you said about the iPhone quality, Apple has the whole shot on iPhone campaign. They want you to make things on those iPhones. So
yeah, they never reached out to me, so I was kind of a little about that.
you just got to keep pushing it. Just be like, look at this thing that I shot on an iPhone.
Yeah. But also too, I think that's like another thing too. I'm just like, just keep making things. It's like the more things you make, the I don't know, the easier it gets. I think in certain ways, you just find your own system that works for you. So
Yeah. And again, if for any small to medium emerging artists listening to this, people don't expect everything to be perfect when you are at a smaller size because they know it's you. They know you don't have these
Yeah.
huge Ariana Grande budgets to do these
Yeah.
crazy music videos. They know it's you. And so if you have a vision in your head and you've got a supportive partner or friend who has an iPhone, go for it. Make
Yeah.
that thing.
And especially if the heart's there too,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like that's something I care, like that's the thing I care about most. I'm like, do I love this? Do I feel excited about this? And people see that. Like, and I think, I was talking to, I haven't had like a whole lot of press done at all. I remember like talking to a press guy just like asking like, "Hey, I don't know if I should invest in this, but like he responded, um, what should I do?" And he was like, the worst thing about our social media age isn't that social media exists. It's that people compare themselves now. And he's like, don't compare yourself to other people. When you see people posting about their success, or when someone posts like, oh, here's an article that someone, wrote for me or about this and said all these nice things, it's like, yeah, that's really cool. And that could feel a little like, um, upsetting or jealous if you feel that. But at the same time, it's like, focus on making the things that you love and let that drive you. Don't let that comparison game like upset you. Be yourself. You can be yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's, social media is also just a highlight reel. And so what you are comparing yourself to is someone's highest moments, not their average moments.
Hmm. I want people to start doing that. Just like be like, this is just the. I feel like I sometimes see that, and I'm like, that's great. Like I want to see people start posting their musical mistakes, at shows, and be like, this was the mistake I made at this show. That's what you get to see. Come to the
Yeah.
next one and see me maybe make a mistake, but also do a good job.
Yeah. I know actually during the Eras tour, there were tons of mistakes because you've got a huge production that large, things are going to go wrong. And people filmed those and they posted them on YouTube. And you know what? Everyone kept going to the Eras tour anyway. No one was like, "Oh no, Taylor Swift made a mistake. I can't go to the next show." Like
Yeah.
people are more forgiving, I think, than people sometimes assume they will be of mistakes and things like that.
Absolutely. I saw Radiohead during their Moonshaped Pool tour, and they were playing the song "The Gloaming," which starts off with this like this crazy like drum machine. And Tom York got off, and then they like stopped it, and he was like, "I'm a professional," and then he like kept going, and then they started it over, and then he like got back. But I was just like, "That's so cool." It's like, yeah. I love seeing things go wrong because it just like is the ultimate like neutralizer. It's like everyone's just a human. Everyone's just a human.
Yeah, and you know, like I said too, once you get to that kind of scale where you've got so many people involved and so many moving parts, things are going to go wrong.
Yeah.
And so, like, if things are going to go wrong for them, things can go wrong for you too, and that's just fine. That's just life.
Yep. Love it.
So thank you so much. I think that's pretty much all of my questions. Can you tell everyone watching where they can find you and if you have any shows coming up?
Yes. So you can find me on Instagram, Alex Johnston Music. You can find me wherever you listen to music, Spotify, iTunes, Tidal, wherever, Amazon, Google, whatever. Bandcamp, if you want to give me a couple bucks, more than streaming services do. um, and and then shows. I am playing the Connor Byrne Pub on September 5th with I Wish I Was a Punk Band, and also Alone in Dead Bars. And Dead Bars is a punk band, but they're doing a solo acoustic set, which I'm super excited about. I love punk music. My partner got me into it, and yeah, so having an acoustic kind of punk band, I think it would be really cool. So it'll be a special show. So come out for that September 5th. It's a Thursday.